He wasn't a first-round pick. He wasn't the media favorite. He wasn't even supposed to get real reps this early in camp. But somehow, Shedeur Sanders has completely flipped the narrative inside the Browns facility and across the entire NFL. Just a few weeks ago, he was buried beneath Joe Flacco's resume, Kenny Pickett's excuses, and Dillon Gabriel's potential, a fifth-rounder stuck behind three quarterbacks, none of whom had done anything to solidify their spot. It looked like just another development year for Sanders, maybe a preseason cameo, clipboard duty, and some scout team reps. But that's not what happened. On day 7 of training camp, the rookie quarterback walked onto the field and made sure no one could ignore him again. Facing the first-team defense for the very first time, Shedeur didn't blink. He didn't just look comfortable, he looked dangerous. And just like that, analysts, teammates, and coaches started asking the same question. Did the Browns just stumble into their future franchise quarterback? And if so, what happens now? Shedeur Sanders didn't get eased into anything. There was no soft launch, no third-team walkthrough to build confidence. On day 7 of training camp, the Cleveland Browns threw him straight into the fire. Second-team offense versus the first-team defense. That's the kind of trial that exposes rookies fast. But instead of flinching, Sanders thrived. He stepped onto the field against veterans who had no interest in going easy on a rookie. We're talking about elite NFL defenders, players who make a living embarrassing quarterbacks. And yet, Sanders stood tall. He navigated the pocket, delivered strikes, and made quick decisions that looked far beyond his age and draft position. It wasn't perfect, but it was poised. And more importantly, it was real. That one practice sparked a firestorm. Analysts started buzzing. Reporters took notice. Teammates raised eyebrows. Suddenly, a guy who had been nothing more than a developmental prospect was at the center of the Browns quarterback conversation. And it wasn't just about potential anymore. It was about performance, right now. This wasn't a slow rise. It was a jolt. A rookie shoved into the deep end, and instead of sinking, Shedeur Sanders started swimming like he owned the pool. And the ripple effects were just beginning. To understand just how wild Shedeur Sanders' rise has been, you have to look at the mess he walked into. The Browns' quarterback room wasn't just crowded, it was chaotic. At the top, you had Joe Flacco, the aging veteran with a Super Bowl ring, and a body that no longer moves like it used to. Then came Kenny Pickett, the supposed reclamation project from Pittsburgh, who's had every opportunity to prove he's the guy, but kept proving he's anything but. And finally, Dillon Gabriel, the undersized rookie with raw talent but major concerns about whether he can physically hold up in the end. No clear leader, no locked-in starter, just a bunch of question marks and fading hopes. That's the battlefield Shedeur stepped into. But here's the twist. None of these guys made the case to slam the door shut. Flacco's best days are in the rear view. Pickett has the stats of a journeyman, not a franchise QB. And Gabriel, while intriguing, looks more like a long-term project than an immediate threat. That's why Sanders' sudden emergence is so disruptive. He wasn't supposed to shake things up, but the truth is, he walked into a QB room full of uncertainty and might be the only one actually offering an answer. The moment Shedeur Sanders started flashing on the practice field, the takes started flying. But none louder than Nick Wright's. The sports commentator didn't dance around it. He went straight for the jugular, saying what others were too cautious to admit. Start Shedeur Sanders, now. Wright didn't just praise Sanders' talent, he exposed how weak the competition truly was. He ripped into Kenny Pickett, calling him flat out not an NFL quarterback. He pointed out the countless chances Pickett had already blown and questioned why the Browns would keep investing in someone who's consistently failed to produce. Then came Joe Flacco, once a legend, now a living relic. Wright dismissed him with surgical precision. Super Bowl ring or not, Flacco's best moments are ancient history. If the Browns think he's their bridge to a playoff run, they're living in the past. And finally, Dillon Gabriel. Wright was more measured here, acknowledging his effort, but still called out the obvious. Gabriel's size limits his ceiling, and no matter how much heart he shows, it likely won't be enough to carry a franchise. With all three rivals exposed, Wright didn't hesitate. To him, Sanders wasn't just a better option. He was the only option, and he wasn't alone in thinking that. It's easy to hype a rookie after one good day, but Shedeur Sanders didn't just flash once. He's been stacking performances all camp long, and the numbers are starting to tell a story the Browns can't ignore. Every time practice stats come out, completion percentage, red zone efficiency, decision-making under pressure, Shedeur's name is right there at the top. He's not just competing, he's outperforming the very quarterbacks ahead of him on the depth chart. Flacco may have the experience, Gabriel may have the reps, but Sanders, he's got the results. Even Nick Wright, who's seen his fair share of training camp mirages, admitted it's getting harder and harder to brush these numbers off. One day can be a fluke. Two, maybe momentum. But day after day, that's consistency. And that's what separates hype from substance. What makes it more impressive is the context. Sanders hasn't been given top-tier weapons or the most favorable matchups. He's had to make the most of every snap, often with the second unit, facing the best defenders on the roster. And somehow, he keeps delivering. The Browns wanted a quiet competition, but the numbers coming out of camp are making that impossible. And they weren't the only ones noticing. As the buzz around Shedeur Sanders kept growing, another voice stepped into the spotlight, Chris Broussard, and he didn't hesitate. He called out the Browns directly, urging them to stop playing it safe and give Sanders a real shot to prove himself in live games. Broussard's take wasn't just a hot opinion, it was a challenge. He made it clear, if Cleveland's serious about finding their next franchise quarterback, they can't afford to keep Sanders on the sidelines. According to him, the Browns already know what they have in Flacco and Pickett, and it's not enough. As for Dillon Gabriel, Broussard didn't sugarcoat it. He saw him as nothing more than a backup, a career number 2, not a starter. Even more telling, Broussard pointed out that the Browns themselves didn't seem to view Gabriel as a real threat. Despite being a higher pick than Sanders, Gabriel wasn't getting the same momentum, the same chatter, or the same respect. And that gap was only widening by the day. Broussard's bottom line was simple. You don't find out what a quarterback is made of by hiding him behind veterans who've already peaked. You find out by putting him on the field, and Sanders was getting dangerously close to earning that chance. It's one thing to impress with your arm, it's another to win over a locker room, and that's exactly what Shedeur Sanders has started to do. Garrett Bush, who's been at Browns camp every day, saw something different in Sanders. Not just growth on the field, but something deeper, composure. Even when Shedeur wasn't getting the top reps, he didn't complain. He didn't pout. He showed up early, stayed focused, and answered every media question with calm confidence. That doesn't sound like a fifth-round rookie. That sounds like a leader. Bush pointed out that Sanders wasn't just learning plays, he was mastering them. Coaches noticed his understanding of the playbook growing. Teammates noticed how quickly he was adapting to the speed of the NFL. And all of this came while still waiting his turn. That maturity is rare, especially in a quarterback room full of uncertainty, where most guys would be scrambling to stand out. Sanders didn't beg for attention. He let his work speak. And now, with injuries creeping up and the depth chart shifting, that patience might be paying off because the opportunity he's been waiting for is starting to open faster than anyone expected. When rookies start making noise, veterans usually stay quiet. But in Shedeur Sanders' case, they're not just talking, they're backing him publicly. Jerry Jeudy, one of the Browns' most respected wideouts, didn't hesitate when asked about Sanders. He spoke about a young quarterback who's grown rapidly in a short amount of time, not just in mechanics, but in confidence. Jeudy pointed to how far Shedeur had come since OTAs and minicamp. Back then, he was showing flashes. Now, he's stringing together real NFL-caliber performances. His timing's better, his ball placement's sharper. He's starting to look like a guy who belongs on Sundays. And then there was Myles Garrett, the former number 1 pick. A face of the franchise, a guy who's terrorized elite quarterbacks for years. When asked about Sanders, he didn't hedge. He didn't hold back. He said, I'm sure he can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league. That's not praise. That's a declaration. When a defensive monster like Garrett says you can hang with the best, people listen. And when that's backed by a trusted receiver like Judy, it sends a clear message through the locker room. This isn't a camp darling. This is someone the team is starting to believe in, for real. NFL training camps always come with surprises. But for the Browns, the biggest twist might be the one they didn't plan for. As injuries start to hit and reps get reshuffled, the quarterback depth chart is beginning to crack wide open, and right in the middle of it all is Shedeur Sanders. What started as limited second-team reps has quickly evolved. With veterans missing time and young QBs failing to separate themselves, Sanders is getting more opportunities and making the most of every single one. He's no longer the rookie quietly learning in the background. He's the one putting pressure on every name ahead of him. Coaches are taking notice. The media can't ignore it. And inside the locker room, the whispers are turning into real conversations. Why isn't Shedeur getting more reps? What else does he have to prove? The Browns didn't expect this. They came into camp expecting a controlled QB battle, maybe even a slow redshirt season for Sanders. But now, their hand is being forced, because when one quarterback starts to rise and the rest are stuck in neutral, the plan doesn't matter anymore. The only thing that matters is results, and Sanders is delivering. Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to be part of the conversation. He wasn't the first-round savior, the veteran with playoff experience, or the flashy prospect with a hype machine behind him. He was the overlooked rookie, the quiet name on the depth chart. But in just 1 week of camp, he flipped the Browns' quarterback race on its head. He's outperformed expectations, shown maturity beyond his years, and earned the respect of stars like Jerry Jeudy and Myles Garrett. He's faced the first-team defense and didn't flinch. He stayed composed when he wasn't getting reps. And now, with injuries shaking up the roster, he's inching closer to something no one thought possible, the starting job. This isn't just a feel-good camp story anymore. It's real. The stats back it. The film shows it. The locker room sees it. The only thing left is for the Browns coaching staff to stop stalling and make the move. Because the question is no longer if Shedeur Sanders will start. It's when. And if he keeps this up, the Browns won't have a choice. The kid's not waiting for an invitation. He's already kicking down the door.